Hey, I'm NichBoy, welcome to Pocket for Friday, the 22nd of July. Today on the show, arrested developments, crabs, and answers all up in your pockets. Alright, here's what's been making headlines. And first up, 2 gun-toting Pokemon harassers are going directly to jail. No $200 for them! That's the wrong game. A Boston court has sentenced James Stumbo, 28, and Kevin Norton, 19, to 2 years in prison after the pair brought loaded weapons to the 2015 Pokemon World Championships in Massachusetts. The men each pled guilty to charges that they brought an AR-15 rifle and a shotgun, along with hundreds of rounds of ammunition, to the event back in August. During the trials, the prosecution revealed that in the lead up to the event, Stumbo and Norton had threatened other Pokemon players, with Stumbo telling one attendee, "My AR-15 says that you lose." Norton's attorney, Robert Leroy, said that the ruling was an error in judgment, as his client had simply not properly researched Massachusetts gun laws, which he claims are more strict than Iowa state laws, which is where the men drove in from. Leroy said they basically always drive around with loaded guns in the trunk in Iowa. But Your Honor, in my client's defense, they are always primed for murder. Stumbo and Norton have been in prison for the 335 days since they were arrested, which will count as time served of their 2-year conviction. And staying with people getting arrested for being violent, threatening fools, a Sacramento man has been arrested and charged with sending multiple death threats to Blizzard. 28-year-old Steven Sebula sent messages to the development studio earlier this month saying that he, quote, may or may not pay Blizzard a visit with an AK-47 amongst some other fun tools. If a court finds him guilty, he faces a maximum penalty of 5 years in prison and a $250,000 fine. It's always the 28-year-olds. Are you 28? Let us know in the comments and we'll send the police to come and collect you. And moving on now to some not so depressing news, and the Apple Watch is finally getting a real game. Shit, because I just threw mine in the bin. Oh, this is a depressing story. No, not really, I'm rid of it. Square Enix announced that they are developing a role-playing game exclusively for Apple's 1.5-inch screen called Cosmos Rings. Time is recovering from a stall. Is that the game's story or just buggy Apple firmware? Only time will tell, once it starts moving again. And on Monday, we told you that Ark Survival of the Fittest would be out this week for PS4, but we lied. But it's not our fault. Your Honor, I always carry a shotty. Developer Studio Wildcard has put the PS4 release on hold and has not given a new release date. Gameplay designer Kayed Hendricks wrote on the PlayStation blog that while this means Ark Survival of the Fittest won't be releasing on PlayStation 4 in July 2016, we're working towards an earlier release of Ark Survival Evolved for PlayStation 4. And finally, Riot Games has unveiled a new character for League of Legends. Kled is a monster-riding, triangular-headed cat. I genuinely have no idea, but he's pretty cute. All we know about the character is that he loves his little mount and will murder anything that gets in the way of riding that bad boy. It's expected the Riot will release more details on Kled's skills and abilities within the next week. And now it's time for Thing of the Day. All right, it's Thing of the Day. Some men just want to watch the world burn, and others want to see it covered in crabs. YouTuber Limit Breakers replaced every single texture in Dark Souls 3 with a crab. It's a beautiful crustacean nightmare.
Big, meaty claws! Well, these claws ain't for just attracting mates. Bring it on, old man! Bring it on!
All right, now it's time for Ask Pocket, where you ask Pocket. Our first question comes in from the Bronster. How do you and the rest of the Good Game team manage energy at events such as AVCon? AVCon was my first ever convention and I was exhibiting and it was so exhausting. I can't imagine what it would have been like for you guys who had to fly in from Sydney, then fly out again and straight back into work. How do you manage such events? Lots of energy drinks? Also, I was totally excited you recognized me, though I don't know how in the signing line. Don't know if my excitement showed. Bronster, it was lovely to meet you, and it sounds like AVCon was a huge success for you, which is great. It was also a really, really fun weekend for us, but you're right, it was a bit of a whirlwind tour. But I do think that that is part of how I get through that stuff. You just can't stop, because if you stop, like a shark, or the bus in Speed, or Pete's Heart, you die. You just can't lose momentum. But if you land early in the morning, go do 4 hours of signings, a few photograph sessions, a couple of appearances on panels, and then a live show, by the time 9 p.m. rolls around, you don't even realize that a whole day just blurred by. Also, on top of that, these cons generally have staff that can help you, and AVCon was no exception. It really helps when you got a cool group of people that can kind of just shepherd you from place to place and make sure you're fed and watered and you're done potty properly, so you don't get bogged down in the day-to-day logistics that sap the soul from your body. Also, 90% of it, you are coasting on everyone else's energy. You can feel fatigued between sessions, but when you're standing there and there's lines of people out the door who are just so happy and positive and excited, then you can't help but feel jazzed. And it's funny that you mentioned that you were excited that I recognized you in the line, because when I saw you, I thought to myself, hey, that's the Bronster. And the Bronster is going to be very excited that I recognize her, the Bronster, with no prompting whatsoever. So you come up and I'm like, hey, the Bronster. How you doing? And you just kind of nod and start talking right away. And I'm like, classic the Bronster, playing it cool. But then on the inside, I cried a little because a snub from the Bronster cuts to the quick. And next question comes in from Jack Cringy. Have you had to deal with worse ambushes than the ones I've thrown your way? Jackie, one day you're gonna make some newspaper very happy. Because whenever there's an interview to be got, you're always just there. Like a mist or John's Deadpool t-shirt. It's a skill, Jackie. Don't let anyone ever tell you otherwise. For some context, whenever there is a convention or a live show, Cringy just seems to be there, camera in hand, asking some very good, pointed questions. He got us at PAX last year, where Pete, John, and I chatted to him on the show floor. He's talked to Goose at GamerX, and at AVCon this year, he tried to nab an interview with Hex, but unfortunately, we were already late for our next session. But as for other people, it's rarely terrible ambushes. I meet a lot of you guys out and about in the real world. I'm coming out of the movies and someone across the street just screams Jolene at me, or I'm on a train and someone tweets me that they're in the same carriage and that I should turn around. And then occasionally, there are just people who lie in wait down in the ABC foyer waiting for me to finish work. And that's a little strange because I don't know how long you've been there and if you have a knife. Let me tell you a little story. Recently, Sam got a phone call and said,
"Someone's downstairs to see you."
And I said, do they have an appointment? And Sam said,
"No."
And then reception said,
"They're trying to book an appointment."
and then security said,
No.
And then this person tweeted me saying, could I come down because they weren't allowed to book an appointment? And I was like, no, because knives. Look, if I'm being honest, a lot of this has to do with a fear of knives. Not the seeing of knives, but the underlying constant tension of potential knife. I also texted this question to Bajo because I figured he'd have a good story about being ambushed. He said, only online. When friendly fire is on in a shooter or team-based game, quite often my teammates will shoot me after they recognize me and say, sorry Bajo, I had to do it. The creepiest one was in Battlefield or Armor, I think, where someone drove me out to the desert and I was like, hey, this isn't the front line, man. But it was too late. He got out and then he shot me through the windscreen and he left my body there in the car as he ran off into the distance. So yeah. Shit like that is why I get creeped out when someone grabs me at the ABC cafeteria. Our final question comes in from Exeter. How often do people at the office update the hardware for their gaming PCs and how cutting edge do they keep them? Axton, considering most games we play are on PC, we all need something that won't freak out when we not only play, but also capture everything we are doing. So Bajo, Hex, Goose, and myself all have great PCs. I will upgrade maybe the graphics card later this year, but at the moment, what I've got runs everything so well, I just don't feel the need. John's PC is great, Rad's computer is total overkill for something that only needs to run Dota, and we all keep trying to convince Baby Sam to upgrade his current gaming PC. Joe bought a beefy VR rig a couple of weeks ago that puts all of our PCs to shame, and Pete upgraded his this week, and he brought in his old computer, and now we just need to figure out what to do with it. I think the current plan is Rad is going to move into it when Sydney housing prices finally break her. All right, that's it for today's episode of Pocket. My Pocketeers. Sadly, no question from Goose, despite having requested one yesterday on Pocket. You should ask something.
Yeah, why
You
not?
should do it. I'll put it in the show.
Sure.
I'll do it. Maybe that'll impress your parents.
Maybe.
Finally they'll love you. All right, until tomorrow, Nick Boy out. Mwah.
Goose out.
I guess his parents are just gonna have to still be disappointed in him. Please tweet at GooseMangus and let him know you're disappointed as well. All right, and while you're on the internet, please check out Good Game on Facebook, YouTube, and iView. Want to meet fellow Pocketeers? Then join the Pocketeers Facebook group and Steam group. You can follow Good Game on Twitter at Good Game TV. Follow Pocket at Inkby at Pierre at Judy at Monkey and at Samgame. There are links to everything I just said in the description below. Today's Thing of the Day graphic was made by James Clumps. If you've made a thing, please send it in. Until Monday, Nick Boy out. Mwah! Have a great weekend, everybody. No jokes, just affection for all of you.